The story of Little Nightmares exists within a dark and surreal ecosystem known as the Nowhere. The atmosphere itself is half the reason people find themselves drawn to this game, and it's no surprise why. From the claustrophobic darkness of the prison to the grotesque excess of the dining hall, to the vast inescapable hull of the maw itself, every corner of this world feels both oppressive and dreamlike all at once. When I first played Little Nightmares in 2022, I couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity for the world. Familiarity that I couldn't quite pinpoint till I rewatched Spirited Away later that same year. Upon closer inspection, I realized that these two works, one a 2001 Studio Ghibli film, the other a 2017 indie game, share something much deeper than visual coincidence. For those unfamiliar with either of these masterpieces, in Little Nightmares, a game developed by Tarsier Studios, you play as a small girl named Six, who must explore an attempt to escape from a mostly underwater eatery called the Maw. In Spirited Away, an animated film directed by Hayao Miyazaki, we follow the plight of a 10-year-old girl named Chihiro, who gets pulled into a spirit world and must work in a supernatural bathhouse to survive and rescue her parents. Now, I've loved both of these stories for a long time, but I found that anytime I revisited them, I was once again reminded of just how similar they are. Little Nightmares didn't just take inspiration from Spirited Away, it translated its most iconic imagery and themes into an interactive medium. And we're going to go through the visual parallels, the thematic overlaps, and the folkloric roots that tie both of them together.
I'll get you for this, son.
Both of these worlds feel like somewhere you've been before, somewhere dark, somewhere you weren't supposed to wander into alone. Both settings spend the majority of time in a place of business, only you aren't the customer, you're the commodity. In Spirited Away, Chihiro works as an employee for a bathhouse, and in the maw of Little Nightmares, well, Six is on the menu. The bathhouse in Spirited Away is enormous. It towers over Chihiro. Every corridor, every staircase, every door is built for something much bigger than her. She's constantly dwarfed by the architecture around her, and that's intentional. Miyazaki uses this scale to communicate powerlessness. Chihiro is small, and the world she's trapped in was made for something very different from her. The maw works in the same way. Six is tiny, while the maw is massive. Every room feels like it was never designed for someone her size to navigate within, because it wasn't. She's not supposed to be out and wandering freely. She's nothing more than a meal that has gotten loose. Both locations sit on the water and require a bridge to enter, and that bridge is the single entrance, cutting off the rest of the world. In Spirited Away, Chihiro must literally hold her breath to cross, desperate to remain unseen.
Take a deep breath. Hold it.
In Little Nightmares, we hold our breath for Six, hoping she too can pass through unnoticed by those who would wish to capture her. The maw also borrows traditional Japanese architecture from the bathhouse, including Fusama doors, shoji screens, and Gawa-style corridors, and lantern lighting. The overall vertical layout of the maw also echoes the multi-story bathhouse structure Miyazaki designed for Spirited Away, which itself was based on real Sento and onsen architecture. Even the owner of the maw, the lady, is inspired by Japanese geisha. She dons a long brown kimono with her face covered by a white porcelain mask similar to that of a Japanese no mask. Which brings us to the similarities between our antagonists. In Little Nightmares, the main antagonist and proprietor of the maw is simply known as the lady. The owner of the bathhouse in Spirited Away is also our main antagonist, a powerful witch named Yubaba. Yubaba and the lady. Both are the absolute rulers of their respective domains. Both are fearsome, magical women, capable of transformation, telekinesis, spellcasting, and more. They project power and command fear. And yet, both are ultimately tied to their own domain and the rules which bind it. Neither of the women roam freely, and both are exceptionally vain. The lady being obsessed with youth and beauty, and Yubaba being obsessed with the success of her bathhouse and subsequent monetary gain. while the lady is a bit more mysterious, colder, and unknowable compared to Yubaba's boisterousness.
Why in the world do you think I should give you a job? Anyone can see you're lazy, spoiled crybaby, and you have no manners.
The structural role both of them play is the same. The similarities don't end there. If we have the lady and Yubaba running the ships, then we also have the gatekeepers of the lower realm, where both of our journeys begin. Kamaji, the Spider-Man who runs Spirited Away's boiler room, and Roger, the janitor in Little Nightmares. Both live in the underbelly and are key players of the businesses in which they work. Both have incredibly long extendable arms that they use for their jobs. For Kamaji, that's mixing herbs and bathwater and keeping the boiler lit, and for Roger, that's stacking cages and nabbing children. But what I find most interesting about both of them is their ambiguity. Kamaji is threatening when you are first introduced to him, but he quietly helps Chihiro, clearly growing fond of her and ultimately choosing to care for her. Roger, on the other hand, is genuinely dangerous, but there's something almost pathetic about him too. He's part of the machinery, not the architect of it. Neither is the real villain. Both are somewhere in the uncomfortable middle. Part of the establishment, but also, in their own way, trapped themselves. Speaking of cogs in our machines, we also have a connection between the gnomes in Little Nightmares and the Susuwatari, or soot sprites, in Spirited Away. Both of these entities are small, numerous, and non-threatening in an otherwise very threatening world. While they can't speak, they can understand our protagonist and show emotion. While playful, they also both serve a purpose, feeding coal to the fire that heat the bathhouse and run the Maw's engines. Both the gnomes and the soot sprites are created by magic and have a layer of whimsy, yet they're still part of the ecosystem that keeps these businesses quite literally afloat. Then we have the chefs running the kitchen of the Maw, preparing an endless feast for their ravenous customers. They play a similar role to the frog-like staff of the bathhouse, amphibious, hunched, and built for labor rather than grace.
Relax, good morning. Enjoy, have a nice bath.
None of them are human, and all of them exist to cater to the appetites and pleasures of their guests. They are the machinery that keeps these places running. And the last of our inhabitants are the guests themselves. In Spirited Away, the spirits are varied and unique, some whimsical, some strange, some almost charming.
Look, a valued customer. Welcome to our baths.
But strip that away and their role is the same as the bloated figures seated in the Maw's dining hall. They are the customers. They come to be served and to consume. Take a look at the similarities in how they move and how much larger they are than the girls. They don't ask questions about what goes on behind the kitchen doors. In both worlds, the guests represent the same uncomfortable idea. That appetite makes you complicit. You don't have to be the monster doing the cooking. Sometimes just sitting at the table is enough. That brings us to my favorite comparison between these two worlds, one that is an overarching motif found in both works: consumption, gluttony and greed, eating, being eaten, and what happens when you give in to hunger. In Spirited Away, Chihiro's parents are almost immediately turned into pigs because they sat down at what appeared to be an empty restaurant and gorged themselves on food that wasn't theirs. Their punishment fits the crime like a fable or a fairy tale. Gluttony literally makes you an animal. You lose your humanity. Now look at the guests in the Maw's dining room. They're not so different from Chihiro's parents. They're enormous, faceless, and gluttonous. They consume without thought, without restraint, without humanity. The visual language is almost identical. There's one more layer to this hunger. No-Face is one of the most fascinating characters in Spirited Away. A masked spirit who embodies greed, consumption, and the need for connection. He gorges on food and attention and becomes increasingly monstrous and destructive as a result. He swallows people whole, and he doesn't know how to stop because he doesn't really have a self to anchor it.
Just keep the food coming. I want to eat everything!
He doesn't want to cause harm, and yet he does. He can't help himself. In fact, he can hardly understand that he is causing harm in the first place. Six's hunger in Little Nightmares is the same kind of horror. It's not just that she's hungry, it's that her hunger is supernatural, agonizing and progressive, uncontrollable and ravenous. And by the end of the game, it consumes her just as much as she consumes those around her. Just like No Face, Six's hunger isn't just a character trait, it's an existential condition. A void that needs to be filled, and despite her best efforts to not cause harm, she too can't help it. Both Little Nightmares and Spirited Away are asking the same question. What happens when an insatiable appetite and greed are left unchecked? And in both the answer is the same, a loss of humanity and a loss of self.
Hey! Over here! Don't call him over. I think being in the bathhouse makes him crazy. He needs to get out of there.
Yeah? And go where?
I don't know.
You don't know. Oh, great. Now he's following us.
The settings, the villains, the hunger, and the small creatures in the margins. The parallels are clear. But I want to leave you with something that I think explains why these two works feel so similar at their core. The original Japanese title of Spirited Away is Sen Tochihiro no Kamikakushi. That last word, Kamikakushi, is literally translated as Spirited Away, but the more literal meaning is hidden by kami, kami being spirits. And Kamikakushi is a real folkloric term that refers to children who vanish without explanation. In Japanese folklore, if a child ever disappeared, they were said to have been hidden by spirits and taken into another world, stolen away. The whole world of Little Nightmares is built around the disappearance of the small and the vulnerable into something vast and hungry and supernatural. I think that's what this is all about at its core. That's the thread that ties these two stories together and allows them to both leave you with otherworldly horror and wonder. These stories are about children vanishing, children being taken, and going on a nightmarish journey in the hopes to not be swallowed whole by the unknown. Both works are expressions of the same ancient anxiety, the fear that children can simply disappear without a trace, as if something or someone simply ate them whole. That the world contains something hungry for them specifically, that adults or things that look like adults are not always safe, that the boundary between the normal world and something monstrous is thinner than we'd like to believe it is. Miyazaki drew from Japanese folklore consciously and deliberately, and Tarsier Studios tapped into the same haunting vein. The visual echoes we spent this video cataloging aren't just homage, they're evidence of two artists reaching into the same dark well of human fear and dredging up something that looks remarkably similar. The fear of being taken, the fear of being consumed, the fear that the adult world can, and in fact was built to devour them whole. That fear is ancient and real. While Miyazaki aimed to empower young girls as heroines by exploring themes of finding inner strength, holding on to one's true identity, and overcoming that suffocating fear, Little Nightmares embraced the horror itself as the medium, creating a genuinely terrifying experience. This has been Reed Hammond. Till next time. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, as I have a good bit more planned coming up. If you want to hear how Little Nightmares 2 also relates to Spirited Away, comment below, as I think I have enough connections to make a second video. Thank you.